Thank you for staying with us. And time now for the news review. We're joined by microfinance analyst and development enthusiast Roderick Aye. He is our guest. Roderick, a very good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, and a happy new year.
Happy New Year to you too. How's the year started for you? And maybe before we get into the year that has started, tell us a bit about your industry, microfinance, and what happened. Of course, we've had the banking sector cleanup, but with the banking sector especially, what did you see in 2022? How did the sector fare, and what do you think can be done to better the lot of investors in 2023?
Well, thank you. The year started on a good note, in spite of all the challenges we are perceiving in terms of the economic issues. I must say that regarding all the challenges we had, the banking sector, I would say, in terms of the universal banks, stood taller. In terms of the rural bank and microfinance as well, we didn't really have any difficulties in banks registering liquidity challenges or not being able to serve their clients. That is a very important part of the things that we need to be talking about. In terms of investors as well, I think investors as well as owners, shareholders all must understand the current situations and be able to, let me say, loosen down their bits and desires a bit, and so that banks as well can be able to go through, especially 2023, which is a very determining or defining moment for banks, microfinance institutions, being rural banks or being universal banks. So in all, the most important thing is that there's much knowledge, there is much caution, and there is much information. The most important thing is how we are going to use all this information to be able to swim through 2023. So yeah, it may be financially very difficult, but with very informed position, prudent management, good governance, and forward-looking, we should be able to find our way across 2023. That's what I would say.
It's interesting that you paint that picture because, of course, we've heard the IMF boss, Kristalina Georgieva, in recent times talk about how difficult this year is going to be for some developing economies. I mean, economies across the world, but especially some developing economies. Also, putting that side by side with the reduction in growth. China, for example, was growing at very high levels, over the past decade or so. That has shrunk. It's same happening in the United States, in Europe, in the EU region. This is going to push hard on financing across the globe because the global north, we know the impacts they have in terms of financing projects and others in the global south. So that must also be brought to bear. And especially with Ghana going to the IMF, that also creates quite a picture. So I would ask you this, on a scale of 1 to 10, how optimistic are you about what portends for the banking sector and our economy at large, if you want to go there?
Yeah, let me put it this way. I mean, in terms of financial difficulty, it's going to be very, very difficult. I mean, bigger economies are going to shrink, as put forward by IMF. Cost of living is going to go high, and all that we can think about. I mean, but if you carefully look at the banking sector, especially in Ghana, and you pick it from the 2008, where we had financial, difficulties across the world, I want to say that in terms of the connection between our banks and financing, they haven't really come under very difficult pressure. I mean, let me put it that way. Yes, because we still have an industry that is not so much controlling in terms of the financial circulation in the economy. We still have people who are outside the banking sector. And so, I mean, let me give you one example. Even though COVID came and happened, one of the things that was noticed in the financial sector, we saw profits going up, We
Right.
saw deposits going up. We saw loans also inching up a little, that people were taking some kind of loan. So if I look at 2008 effect and I look at the COVID effect and how the banks actually still, manage through, I would say, let me not be too optimistic. Let me put it this way: at least five, I see the banking sector actually being able to shoulder these challenges, no matter how difficult it's going to be, because of the history that I talk about, the COVID effect, and as well as the financial crash in 2008. And so I'm positive the banks will find their way out.
Of course, we must be positive. But the final bit I'll run by you when it comes to the banking sector, you would notice that, of course, and there has been a push to have an African ratings agency when it comes to our credit risk ratings, among others. But we're still tied to the apron strings of the S&Ps, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, Fitch, and others. And they do this, as you're well aware, in myriad countries across the globe. It's not just in Africa. The point is, all of these entities have been downgrading us when it comes to our risk ratings. We're in junk status. The last one I saw from, is it Moody's or so, had put us in further deteriorated junk status, approaching D, especially as we have approached the IMF for a deal. That also reflects on our banks because the national rating is given to the banks. How do you feel that will impact the banks in 2023?
Well, great. I get it from the point of the fact that if it affects the banks, it also means that it affects the ability of these banks to actually borrow from outside,
Exactly.
or to receive investors and others. Fine. Yes, you have your ratings. Two, you have your systems and your governance. And the truth is that we have different desired investors across the world. For the fact that you are junk doesn't mean you may not be able to secure loanable funds from other institutions. It depends on what the person is looking for. Some people are looking for social good, especially when it comes to the microfinance sector. Some people are looking for typical investment returns. So, I don't think the bank should take it as a no-go area. Prepare their books and go talking. You would find some investors that are actually also interested in your system. And as well, one of the things is that if you also look, most of us also do quite a lot of mobilization from internal resources. If you look at the microfinance institutions, if you look at the rural banks, majority of our funds comes within from the system. So yes, externally we may have some challenges, but internally we can look at the system, mobilize, and refinance some, projects. Yes, I take it that there are some difficulties because when you mobilize internally, you don't really have the laxity to do long-term projects. So you are bound to do some kind of short activity. That is the only challenge I see. But in terms of raising funds, yes, there'll be challenges, but there's a way out of it. So I would ask banks to look internally. I'll ask financial institutions like microfinance institutions to also look internally and improve on their mobilization drive so as to get some deposits and be able to do the lending they need. There are some institutions, investment firms or investor firms, that would actually take advantage of this situation. The investors will not close their doors to us because a junk economy as well also have some kind of opportunities depending on what you are looking out for. So we should take the situation as it is and try to turn it around, if I should put it that way.
Let's get to the news portals online and check out what they have to offer, Roderick. So I'll start with this one. In fact, two stories tied to the special prosecutor. So I'll do the first one and add the second, then I'll have you react. But maybe before I get to the stories, you do know that we had issues with the first special prosecutor. In fact, the one who started the office. I'm talking about Martin Benz Kaiser Alamisi Amidu. and he had his own issues in terms of logistics, in terms of human resource, and he wasn't paid. He, together with his outfit, were not paid for quite a while. In this instance, we have another situation where the person meant to help battle corruption has not been paid for about 17 months together with his outfit. That has also constrained them logistically in terms of making the recruitments that are required. In terms of the office space, I don't know what the latest dynamics are, but that office, when it was being started, people said this lies within the purview of the Attorney General. There's no need to do this, but we went ahead and did it, just as in South Africa and other places you would have a public prosecutor. But has that office lived up to expectation? And mind you, the special prosecutor himself on Newsfile at the tail end of the year said that he wondered whether there was that commitment to the fight against corruption. What do you make of the special prosecutor's office? And do you think it's delivering on its mandate?
First of all, I think you gave a very good example of other countries that have it. So in terms of the setup and principle, I think it was really well embraced, and it was. I mean, when the thought of it was moved and the office was set up, it received a lot of applause. And the first of its kind was also when the revered Martin was also given the position. I mean, in terms of his political inclination, and then supporting a current dispensation or political move that was actually different. So the whole idea of the prosecutor was good. I mean, it was good. But again, I mean, in terms of the second one we have, the only unfortunate thing is for the second to be still talking about the problems that existed in the first. I mean, in terms of logistics, in terms of the payments, I'd say that, I mean, with HR background, I'm just wondering how the staff in that institution will be feeling to not being able to receive their salary and be working for how many months. So the human resource aspect is a big challenge, and I think the government would need to take a look at it, because the more the workers there are denied of their livelihood, the more it creates an opportunity for them to do things that necessarily may not support the spirit and the principle in creating that office. So on that score, the human resource score, much needs to be done. And if we are talking about people not being paid for so many months, then of course, you may not necessarily expect the outcome to be as if they are paid. So, I mean, if you connect it from the human resource point of view, it is the people who would be motivated to do the work. But these are the people who are still talking about not having the logistics, not being paid, and all the other things. So, I mean, typically, I wouldn't expect us to have a good output of the office because there's a missing link.
There's a missing link. Let's get into that other story. In fact, those two stories. I'll start with the first one. Charles Edubuahin, Sir John's estate, Akunta Mining, Airbus, wealthy but unnamed businessman, all under investigation by special prosecutor. And just to enumerate, the wealthy but unnamed businessman, you remember that issue in Parliament, and supposedly some businessmen who attempted bribing members of Parliament. There are different discourses or stories, narratives that have been given. I've been told by some members of Parliament themselves that yes, the money was taken but given back. Someone said he had never seen such a sum of money before. These are things that have been mentioned in private that I cannot give out the source. But it's interesting because the special prosecutor says it is, the office says it is investigating no less than 132 suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses, which are at various levels of consideration. So he lists the issue of the former Minister of State at the Finance Ministry, Charles Edubuahin, whose case was referred for investigation by President Akufo-Addo following Tiger IPI's documentary, Galamsey Economy. There's also a probe into the state of the late New Patriotic Party kingpin, Kwejo Owusu-Efriye, aka Sir John, which is alleged to contain the controversial bequeathing of portions of state land at the Achimota Forest in Accra to his family members. There's also the case of Akonta Mining Limited, a mining firm said to belong to Ashanti Regional Chairman of the MPP, Bernard Mp Bwesiako, also known as Chairman Wuntumi, and its alleged involvement in illegal mining at a prohibited forest reserve. And all of these are being investigated. The OSP provides the list of cases being investigated in its latest half-yearly report. Now, unnamed officials of the Bank of Ghana, the Ghana Police Service, Electricity Company of Ghana, the Gaming Commission, Ghana Water Company Limited, and the National Sports Authority, among others, are all being investigated for suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses, according to the report. What do you make of this latest drive? Because I bring it up because some people have also said that, look, he's following the same trend as Martin Amidou. A lot of talk, and we'll do this and we'll do that, but which cases really have been prosecuted? None, nothing to show. We're pumping money into this venture as well. Is that how you see it?
Maybe I see it different. I think with what I indicated earlier, if we are talking about some logistics, we also need to analyze the office with a background of all the challenges that they have. And I think we should be a little bit fair with the special prosecutor, the second, because, I mean, this, for me, is no news. It's no news because it has come up earlier, which meant that he actually created the intention of going after the listed issues in the newspaper. And prosecution, as I understand, I mean, from a very layman's point of view, I am sure you would have to do your work. You have to make sure your background checks are correct, your facts are right. I mean, you don't go to the courts now to pick up your facts, but actually you get there and ensure that your fact is intact and you present it. So I would assume all these processes are very important to get to the end of the prosecution. It might not be how fast the person will be working, but how effective those prosecutions would be. What if he runs ahead of the fact and goes to court and then it ends in nowhere? I mean, it actually also even dings the credibility of the SP. And so we should give him that room, which is done for every work, to get his facts, get himself organized, and get to know where and who would have to be dropped and who will have to be pursued. And so I wouldn't take it as, I mean, that he's doing nothing, but as well, we need to analyze his office, the challenges, and how he's, working through the system. That's what I think.
Let's tie that into this issue, also on myjoyonline.com. Alleged corruption at Northern Development Authority, OSP to release outcome in due course. And considering that story, there was a lot of noise made about it. CSOs spoke about it, but there was quite some lethargy from the executive arm of government in responding to it. And some people felt that was tantamount to a subtle endorsement, so to speak, of the actions. But let's get into that. The details are contained in a half-year report issued by the OSP, and according to the Office of the Special Prosecutor, the release of the report is in pursuance of Section 3.3 of the Office of the Special Prosecutor Act 2017, that is Act 959. And the report signed by the Special Prosecutor lists 2 cases as having been concluded. One of them is the investigation into corruption-related offenses in respect of a contract awarded by the Northern Development Authority. Quoting the report, the office has concluded investigations into suspected corruption and corruption-related offenses in respect of a contract awarded by the Northern Development Authority to A&QS Consortium Limited for consultancy services under the Infrastructure for Poverty Eradication Program, that is IPEP, especially in respect of the quantum of the contract sum, a part of the report said. It noted that, quote, the special prosecutor or an authorized officer will issue directives and further action on the matter in due course. There are so many of such issues that have come to the fore, but let me just give a bit of a background. It follows a former NDA CEO's petition to the Chief of Staff, Akosua Frimose Opare, over a fraud issue involving his successor, Dr. Suleimana Anamzoya in the petition accused the successor, Sumaila Abdul Rahman, of falsifying figures and forging his signature to cash 10.4 million Ghana cedis in contracts. Mr. Martin Kwebu's petition called on the special prosecutor, Kisi Jabing, to launch a full-blown investigation into the development. It goes back to what I said. The executive arm of government basically, sat and watched as people called for justice to be done. Martin Kwebu, I remember a news file, put this petition out, and Kisi Jabing, the special prosecutor, took it up. How positive are you that we'll come to some purposeful end when that report is released?
Good. It's a bit worrying. I mean, reading quite, such allegations. I mean, from, forging signatures and things are really serious offenses. And I think the positive thing is that the SP has done his work, he's released the reports, and the facts are out. And so I possibly think, or analyze that once these are serious offenses, and whoever would try to cover up such an outcome, I mean, it will really have a negative effect of you. And therefore, I presume that the matter will be dealt with as it's required, that all the people involved would have to actually be made to answer to it. Of course, I believe in systems, and I also believe in the fact that people should be given the opportunity to defend themselves based on what they think it was. And so I presume that we will see people getting sacked and people getting prosecuted over such an allegation, especially, I mean, if you read the details, which, I mean, you just read to me, forging signatures and signing contract that, I mean, impersonating people, I mean, it's the worst of corruption that I can think of. And therefore, I expect that some harsh decisions should be taken by the executive.
Let's get into a bit of talk about the National Cathedral. And just to give you a bit of a background once more, before I get into the story, some 339 million Ghana cedis have been expended so far by the state on the National Cathedral. This year, 80 million was meant to be designated to that project, but it was poo-pooed by that committee meant to get into the matter in Parliament. They jettisoned it because it was under the Ministry of Tourism. The tourism minister, the designate, couldn't give any real account of what the money would be used for and how it would be expended. The finance ministry couldn't either, so that had to be jettisoned. And another background, 339 million spent. Out of that, if memory serves, about 225 million has gone into the project proper, and about 113 or 114 million has gone into payments for Sir David Ajay and his outfit. So that's the background to the story. Now let me get to it. Sir David Ajay, or Ajay, depending on how you pronounce his name, dismisses claims of opaque dealings in construction of National Cathedral. And the architect working on the National Cathedral has dismissed assertions that his firm, Ajay Associates, is unduly benefiting from the project. Speaking in an exclusive interview with JoyNews' Maxwell Agbagba on the sidelines of the Black Star Line Festival Summit, he noted there was nothing wrong with having a healthy debate on the edifice and its funding. However, he believes it is sad to rather make accusations without any foundation when the needed information about the project is already out in the open. Quoting him, he says, "Everybody should have an opinion and talk about how they feel about everything. Things should be allowed to be investigated and checked till everybody feels comfortable. There is nothing hidden or opaque. Everything is going through the system that can be checked through the government," he said. There have been calls, though, because there are other major projects across the world, some far bigger than the National Cathedral, for which the architects were paid, supposedly, far less. All of that has come into the picture. So I want to ask you, what do you make, first of all, of the National Cathedral project in terms of its relevance? Then again, in terms of the economic situation we're dealing with, is it right, do you think, for us to keep up with a project when indeed there are other areas we could expend those sums of money? Some cathedrals across the world took 2 centuries to build. We want to build this in what? How many years? And what do you make of the Sir David Ajay end of things and the sort of money he is getting?
Thank you. Let me start from Sir David Ajay. I think yesterday I heard a press conference replayed on one of your sister stations, and it tried to clarify the position of Sir Ajay on the project, and actually said that he was a consultant. The press conference also clarified that, I mean, in terms of whatever amount he was receiving, it was 12 or 6% of it, which is not what is in the newspapers. Actually, I think it's also very important for us to know the facts on the issue, on his side. What they also said, that he has not been hired as an architect, but actually as a consultant, which I don't really know the details of it. So a little bit limited on that, but it is important for us to also get to know the fact of the matter. And on the relevance, yes, I mean, and for this, I've had a lot of, good conversation with a lot of my friends who don't actually believe in that infrastructure. I am for it. Yes, we can talk about timing. We can talk about the fact that, I mean, we need to ration our resources. What I keep saying is that, for the fact that you are advancing on a project, I mean, governance is a big issue, and you have different screens, or if I should go, dashboard to watch.
Right.
I don't really think that the project of the National Cathedral actually means that we are going to stop everything we are doing as a developing country and focus on that one.
I don't think anyone has said that, but are these resources we could definitely expend in other areas? I'll give you a typical example, and this is just my opinion, and we're sharing opinions.
Yeah, exactly. Good, yeah.
Schools under trees, it breaks my heart every time I see one of those. There are so many schools, it would amaze you if right here in Accra, go to Gan South, go to some places, you would wonder whether they were part of the capital, okay? And with all of these happening and pumping money into this, I'm not against the cathedral, but maybe it should be more incremental, slowly incremental in approach. Like I said, other countries, the Notre Dame in Cathedral in France, how long did it take them to put it up? In Washington, D.C., that cathedral, how long? And these are developed economies. And we are a developing economy, and we want to put up a cathedral in what space of time? When there are other areas, road infrastructure, our hospitals, you still go to places, personal examples I have, and you don't even get a bed. And I've seen pregnant women. Last year, a friend of mine delivered twins. You wouldn't get a bed, and sometimes you must pull certain strings to. All of that is still in existence, and we want to expend resources on what? I don't know.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, we have some agreements on this particular thing. So in terms of the project, we are not saying no, but all that we are saying is to look at the efficient utilization of our resources.
Right.
So for instance, I'm saying that, okay, if we have 100 Ghana cedis as a nation, we can decide to use 20 for cathedral and 80 for development. That's my thinking. And so that actually comes to put in the fact that, I mean, the shorter years, 2 years, I seriously don't think that we will be able to do the project in that short span. I strongly believe, let's have the very lengthy national timetable for the National Cathedral and keep building it along the line without actually also preventing us from tackling issues of schools, lack of infrastructure, and the hospitals and all those things. They are very important. These are the basis of our development. So we need to have a plan that if 80% of our resources is going here, 20% is going here, which should not be 80% cathedral, 20% our key development issues. That is how I would look at it. But in terms of the relevance, I think it's a good thing. All we need to do is that let's not put all our eggs in building the cathedral. That's how I would say it. But it's an important project that we need to support because it adds up to our national, I mean, it will change the dynamics of our infrastructure and face of it. I mean, if you look at, I remember I still close when they built National Theatre, Conference Center. I mean, these are all, infrastructure that added up and created avenues for us to have projects. I see the cathedral, in quotes, beyond a church. I see it as an edifice that would help us to do a number of activities that we think, whether you're a Christian, a Muslim, a traditionalist, and ever. This would actually speak to a lot of our needs as a people. But the period, like you said, is what we need to look at. 2 years, I doubt we can be able to achieve it. But if we make it as a plan over time,
right,
without denying ourselves of critical development infrastructure, we should be able to do this together as a people.
We'll be wrapping in the next few minutes. I'll also go online and look at bbc.com. But let's wrap on myjoyonline.com with this story. Prayers alone cannot achieve New Year resolutions. I am very Christian, but also very hardworking. I think sometimes we get too prayer happy, and prayer is good. I go to church practically every day. So sometimes people would think that, oh, seeing you make some of these comments, maybe you are satanic or you are averse to God. I am probably more God-centered than most people out there. And I'm not just saying this. Anyone who knows me knows that. But I also know that with God comes work, and you will not leave for God to do the work that you must do. Okay? So prayers alone cannot achieve New Year resolutions. That's according to Apostle Chris, the executive pastor of Worldwide Word Ministries, the Hill City Church, Apostle Chris Bidema, who has opined that depending on only prayers cannot help in the manifestation of one's resolutions. Most Christians believe that praying over their planned New Year resolutions is the only way to achieve them. As a result, they become hesitant to work, believing that their objectives will be met through intense prayer. I want you to reflect on that, because I think I'm just opining that as a country, we're so prayer happy and so work averse. We are averse to work, but we pray a lot, and we're still not seeing the results, and nothing is changing. What do you think?
I think there's actually a great disconnect between what we profess as Christians and what we do practically. I mean, there's a great disconnect. Sundays, we act well. I tell people, Sundays we act well.
Let me just say this. I was shocked on December the 31st when you see the number of cars and people going to church and how everyone is, let the year start. Yes. Then you see the real us.
I actually get shocked. Even Sunday, Monday, when you're driving on the streets, it starts from the road. I mean, the way we scream and talk to people, it's as if we didn't go to church last Sunday. So what he's saying is actually the truth. I think we need to reposition ourselves and our mindset when it comes to our Christianity and hard work. I mean, Christianity doesn't take away the fact that you need to work hard. I mean, there's no results that you can achieve only on your needs. You must actually fold your sleeves and do hard work. I mean, and that is what we need to be doing. Yes, we pray, but yes, you will need to work hard. I mean, if you look at the number of prayers we have said in this country, if actually prayer would contribute to development, well-being, and poverty reduction, I don't think Ghana should be poor. But what is that? What do we see? And so we should please move away from thinking that the only time to reset your focus is the 31st December. Or we should also remove from the fact that God only speaks to us on 31st December. Actually, God directs and speaks to us every day. And every day, you will be making your resolution. Let me tell you something. Actually, for almost about 5 years, I decided to stop a resolution. I tell myself every day, oh yes.
We're almost on the same page on that.
Every day is a day to resolute. Every day is a day to resolute.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, you make a big resolution, and by December, you realize that if you want to read every day, take a book and read. I mean, if you want to exercise, take a book and exercise. If you want to start running, the point is that start running. I mean, so what is it? Our lives must actually be our lives. Prayer is important, but we need to take charge of the earth that God has given to us. And I don't know how you can weed with prayers. I don't know how you can hunt with prayers. I don't know how you can build with prayers. It takes work.
But maybe you also don't know how we can industrialize with prayers.
It doesn't happen. I mean, I'm a Christian, I'm a Presbyterian. it doesn't happen. If we don't apply ourselves to the principles, if we don't work hard, I
Right.
mean, typically we go to work and you see how people lack around. If the boss is not around, look at how the typical
Yeah.
Ghanaian will behave.
Yeah.
If the policeman is not around, look at how the typical Ghanaian will behave. I tell people we'll come and curse Ghana because of differences. Then we go to church and we start praying for the prosperity of our country. Then when we come, we'll take the pen and then act anyhow.
Yeah. We pray for prosperity, but we don't do the things that will bring prosperity. And sometimes there's also the political angle and there's the private angle as well, private enterprise. But just to wrap the conversation, so two things. First, I'll mention this. You know about import substitution and recently what we've said, the Jospon Group and hopefully to set up plants across the 16 regions of Ghana for rice production. What do you make of that? I always go back, and it's interesting for me because I started talking about this last year, and this year I hear a move towards this, and I'm happy about it because Nigeria was able to move from 957 metric tons of imported rice to 15 within 6-7 months. It's possible to do. And some people, when I put it out there, have said, oh, you think other neighboring countries, when you stop importing rice and all of that, if another country was able to do it, if other countries have gained self-sufficiency, we can do it. And then I would like you to wrap with these stories on the BBC. Just share any thoughts you have on any one of them. You don't have to talk about all of them. Ghana and Morocco to start COVID checks for China arrivals. And Ghana and Morocco have become the first African countries to impose travel restrictions on passengers from China over concerns about the coronavirus. From Tuesday, which is yesterday, Morocco had banned travelers from China regardless of their nationality until further notice. The foreign ministry says the move is aimed at preventing a spike in infections in the country. Ghana's restrictions will take effect on Friday, so that is 2 days from now. There's also the bit about let me just get to that. I am taller than the big Ghanaian, Ethiopia's tall man. So the BBC carried a story about the Ghanaian who suffers gigantism, popularly known as Awuche. Let's go. That's his nickname. And there's an Ethiopian who is saying that he is taller than this gentleman. And finally, there's a story as well about the Gambian civilians charged over a coup plot and some people killed, 5 people killed in a Mali attack. All of those stories on the BBC online platform. Quick reactions?
Yeah, I think the rise is a big thing we need to do. I mean, the truth is that I followed up the rice production in the country. The opportunity is there. The truth is that we can actually have rice produced at least 3 times in a year.
Right.
We have the right infrastructure like irrigation.
We have the arable land, and we have land that is suitable for rice paddies. You know,
somewhere in Cape Coast, somewhere in the
Volta
Western
region,
Volta region. I mean, you can count the rice, the northern. So we have it.
The northern belt, yes.
What we really have is the irrigational system. So what our farmers will do is only do small, 1 season, and then they wait for another season.
Yeah.
But once we have a good plan, commercial, what it means is that 3 months, 4 months, we can harvest rice and go back to the field again. So I think it's a good move. What our advice is for him to get the people on board. There's Ghanaians around who actually are very knowledgeable and experienced in this business. It is important that the science part of it is added to the business. Other than that, there will be problems. The science part should be added to the desire and the enthusiasm. Other than that, there will be problems. Right. And so that is what I would want to take on the initiative. It's a good thing and we should support it. Yes, I think it's good that Ghana is positioning itself quickly and proactively to curb, any second infection of the COVID. I mean, right. COVID is very stressful, very, very stressful, very, very stressful. And
it can really impact the economy.
Absolutely. I keep saying that, I mean, for the Western world, COVID was against their human resource. But for the underdeveloped country, it was against their economy. And the economy is really harsh. It's so harsh. So it's important that we take very proactive measures to really, really, really prevent this. And to also add that for us Ghanaians that are still debating, I don't want to have the jab, I want to have the jab. I'm not a medical science, but I think the jab helps. It will help you and it will help all of us. I mean, because once somebody else is infected, actually, I am not safe. And so, in order to make your daughters, your sons, and your neighbors safe, please take that responsibility. Go to the health center and
Right.
have your jab. I have had double. I'm left with a booster. I don't think two of them did anything
Roderick,
negative to me.
I have taken 4.
Hey.
So the original 2 and 2 boosters.
Oh, okay.
Especially because of the
okay.
nature of my work and what I am exposed to from time to time and other factors. But for anyone who would say the jab is unnecessary, unneeded, well, you're putting yourself, not just yourself, but people around you at risk. Some of these things must not be politicized or over. But sometimes it's also the, what's the term? Those who put false information out there about vaccines and all of that. They also create minds. Some minds are very impressionable and they read something or see something and it's viral on TikTok or YouTube, and then people draw their own conclusions, unfortunately. So I guess a lot more education needed in that regard. But Roderick, thank you so much for joining us this morning. It's been really refreshing interacting with you.
Thank you. It's been a good morning. And again, I wish your viewers a happy new year. I mean, let's give it our best shot. In health-wise, I would advise, let's be very active. Too much sitting is not good. So I have one thing I want to share with people. I picked it from one of my bosses, 1 kilometer run. If you cannot do anything in a day, in a week, at least buy yourself a running shoe and make sure you are only doing a 1 kilometer run or 1 kilometer walk. The walk is only 1 kilometer is just about 13 minutes, you'll be done. 1 kilometer run, by 8 minutes, you are done. And you can get back to your activities. I do it after work. I change and then I do my 1 kilometer run. I sit in my car and I come back. So it's important. Let's pick up our health. Let's be positive. Let's work hard and put Ghana first. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roderick. He is a microfinance analyst and development enthusiast. Roderick Aye has been our guest. Thanks for staying. Up next, we serve you sports.